Here we go. All right, everybody, welcome back to the CrossFit Rife podcast, where we talk about the pursuit of health and happiness via CrossFit. Here with another one of our awesome members, a good friend of mine. He's been a member at the gym for 5 years.
Almost six. Be six in
almost
December.
6. Damn.
Yep.
Okay. So forever. Jason Barnes, just a staple. I think every gym should have a Jason Barnes, just like every gym should have a Mary Lou and a couple other people. Just one of those people that comes in, works hard, really adds value to the community. But thanks for your time, man. I know you're a busy guy. So
My pleasure.
Cool. So tell us a little bit about yourself, like background, where you're from, all that stuff.
Yep. Grew up outside of Richmond, Virginia, near Kings Dominion. Graduated high school in 97. Went to Campbell University for a year outside of Raleigh, North Carolina. And that year, I realized some people take their transition in life between kindergarten and first grade. It's called transition year. I took mine between my freshman and sophomore year of college. I did not do so well my first year of college. I got a 1.4 GPA. I did not party, but I still managed to somehow earn a 1.4 GPA.
That's better than me.
Yep. So it made my mom and dad ultra proud. And the deal was, if I was to get each year of college paid for, I had to pass the prior year. So pretty logical.
What is passing?
A 2.0 or a higher.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it was nowhere close. So I decided to go play sports again. My life had revolved around, and our family was church and sports. So I started researching schools. I found a school in upstate New York, and it was a junior college. So ended up contacting that hockey coach and ended up playing soccer and hockey for a couple years at that school. And during that time, though, my dad was like, hey, maybe college isn't for you. Why don't I give you the money and you open up a Chick-fil-A? And we hadn't researched the business model. And I was like...
That was your dad's idea?
That was my dad's idea at that time. Because he knew how much I love business. And I was like, well...
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I was like,
I'm surprised I didn't know that for how long I've known you.
I was like, I'm 18. Like, I don't really have a whole lot of experience outside of, like, waiting tables. And it was, like, vice president of the youth group, right? Wasn't a whole lot of leadership experience.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I was like, Dad, I've always wanted to be a teacher, coach, and a principal. Like, let me finish that journey. And then at that point, I was like, I'd love to come back to Chick-fil-A, like, revisit that idea. So I transferred to school in upstate New York, like I said. Went there for 2 years, graduated there, went to Carson Newman. It's outside of Knoxville, Tennessee. I played soccer there at the Division II level. Graduated there, and then I started teaching, and then I started my master's at the University of Tennessee. And then during that time, my master's was educational administration. They asked you to be an assistant principal intern. So it kind of really did a fast track, because I thought I'd teach 5 or 10 years, be a principal 5 or 10 years, and then come to Chick-fil-A. Well, it sped it up by about 10 years. So I taught just for a couple.
I feel like maybe Chick-fil-A is a better option than being a principal.
Probably. And then just taught for a couple. And then when I met my wife in 06, we met in 06 and then got married in 07. We were in Knoxville. Her family's in Charlotte. Mine's in Richmond. And I was like...
You met and a year later were married.
I proposed after 3 months. So we knew it was right. And I took her mom, dad, and brother out to dinner to ask for her hand in marriage, and they were like, "Okay." So I was like, "Man, I got 3 yeses after 3 months." So I was like, thankful. But we were 27, so we were,
I mean, I think it took me. When did I propose? It took me 8 years.
Oh wow. So anyway, in 07, the summer of 07, I spent just figuring out, like, hey, when do I want to do the assistant principal thing and principal thing? So I started applying a little bit, had a couple interviews for that school year, and then the summer of 08 hit, and I just applied in about 112 different schools I applied to be assistant principal in, and I made the final 2 in approximately 5 different schools. So
out of 112.
Out of 112. And
where are these all? Are these all located?
They were
all
Georgia,
over?
Tennessee, North Carolina, and Virginia.
Okay.
So ended up having a fun summer, like traveling. I mean, interviewed on a beach at Hilton Head. That was really cool. Drove all the way to Mooresville, North Carolina, and interviewed with a school there. Drove to a couple schools in Knoxville where we were living. And, being the final 2, you have a 50-50 shot. And I was like, 2 of them, I thought I had it. Like, I thought I was a shoe-in. And got calls. It was like, hey, we didn't select you. I was like, okay. So back to the Knoxville school system it was. And then my wife went online and found this school in inner city Durham that needed an assistant principal. Applied in September of 08. I was interviewed on a Monday. They offered me the job that Friday, and then a week and a half later, I moved to Durham by myself with my wife back in Knoxville, and I lived out of my car for a week, which did not go so well in the household.
Yeah, that sounds terrible.
So he was doing the assistant principal thing in inner city school, and found out one of my teaching assistants, her son was an operator with Chick-fil-A, and called her into the office and said, "Hey, just so you know, I've always wanted to be an owner operator with Chick-fil-A, and I know your son is. Can I have his number?" So that was December of 2009, and then I applied to be an owner operator with Chick-fil-A in April of 2010. Our son was born a few days later. I didn't hear anything back for a while. July of 2010, did a phone interview. September of 2010, they flew up and did a face-to-face interview. December, they came back and did another face-to-face interview in Raleigh-Durham. In January of 11, they flew me down to Atlanta at the corporate office to do a really quick all-day interview. Was not quick at all. And then a couple weeks later, they sent us to Virginia Beach to look at 2 restaurants, the Haygood location and General Booth location. And then flew my wife and I back down a week later, and we were selected. So it usually takes about 3 years to go through the selection process, and ours was a little under 10 months. So for Chick-fil-A's world, it was super fast, and for us,
It was forever.
it was absolutely forever. So my wife packed up the house with my in-laws, and they moved here in April of 2011 while I was in training. And then I moved here pretty much the last week of April, took over the Haygood location, worked for a year. Our daughter was born in 2012. And then the following year, I really wanted 2 restaurants. So I just said, I got to go research the best there are. So I did. I found all the multi-restaurant owner operators in Chick-fil-A and just visited them and called them and picked their brain. And 5 years later, this past February, we were selected for a second location, which is being built in front of the outlet mall. So
Busy man.
that's the story. A lot of fun through that, a wife, a couple jobs, a couple businesses now. And
Couple kids.
2 kids later, here we are.
That's very cool. So you guys have been in Virginia Beach since for coming up on 9 years?
Well, no, it'll be come up on 8 years. So in 2011. So
2011, got it.
We moved here in
Okay.
April of 2011. Yeah.
Talk about the interview process a little, because I think it's fascinating. So I think a lot of people are familiar with the brand. Obviously, it's not something that's rare to see in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. But I don't think most people have a really firm grasp of the culture.
Right.
And the reason I'm asking this question is because I find the culture in Chick-fil-A and the culture in CrossFit to be very similar in a lot of ways. But talk a little bit about that hiring process. And then I've got some follow-on questions for that. But yeah.
When I went through in 2010, they had, so in 2010, they had 23,000 applications to be owner operator. And they selected that year right at 100.
That's for 23,000 for 100 locations.
100 selection decisions that year. And they take 60% internal and then 40% external like I was. So you do the math, 40 out of 23,000 was really my draw, if you will, my probability there. And their selection process is insane. You do an initial questionnaire. They send you back a 23-page dissertation, if you will, that you have to fill out. And that took an extremely long time to fill out. And then from there, like I said, they do a phone interview, and then all the face-to-face interviews started. So I found out in my process, 23,000 went to about 2,300 for people that do the questionnaires, because they'll knock out 90% just like that.
Wow.
About 90%.
Yeah, okay.
And then the remaining 10%.
I'm sure a bunch of them are just bogus. They're just like, I like chicken.
Exactly.
You're like, you're not
and then the other half, they knocked that number down in half because of the people that don't reply to the 23-page essay. So it's like, all right, you don't want to go through that, then clearly you don't want to be, inside the system. And then from there, it just depends on where you want to go and what you want to do and what your background was. So one guy I met during the process, he had been in the process for 10 years and had not been selected yet. And then I met another guy that was selected in 6 months. So obviously timing in life is everything.
Did the guy that was there, so he got in after 10 years?
He was selected the same day I was selected.
Good talk about persistence, man.
Yeah, so it took him 10 years. So yeah, the culture is insane. They're looking for, they always start with the character, the competency, and then the chemistry. They look at the cash flow of that person, and they look at the college degree. So you got to have the 5 C's. And the big thing Chick-fil-A is looking at is your entrepreneurial spirit. So if you just love Chick-fil-A and think it's super cool, then they're going to say, awesome, you can still be a customer. But if you love business and have that wiring, they're going to look at you obviously pretty strongly.
I think it's very similar from what I've seen for people who want to coach. Mm-hmm. in CrossFit. So I think there's a massive population of people who are like, I love CrossFit, I should coach. And then they have to coach.
Yep.
And then it's not so easy, at least the way that we run it. I mean, there's pretty high expectation about what you need to be able to do and then do it well.
Yeah.
And I think I've always found that to be a little almost odd. It's a weird scenario where just like you have these people that are crazy passionate about it, but for not everybody's, their passion is actually fitness. It's not teaching.
Yep.
And they're very different.
Yeah.
You have to have a heart for teaching if you want to do this.
Yeah.
Do it well.
Yeah. Chick-fil-A is going to look at, the biggest thing they're going to look at is your ability to lead yourself and then your ability to be able to lead other people. And if you don't have a track record of doing both, which most people don't, they have a track record of one or the other. Like they're really good at going and telling a bunch of people what to do and then not modeling it, or they model it, but they have zero ability to be able to communicate that to a group of people, whether it's 2, in your family, or 20 at your team and your job, or maybe it's your business you own of a couple hundred. And that's really what's going to start separating people, is that ability to communicate, and lead an organization, or a small group of people, depending on the size of your business.
You and I have talked about this before. I had always been what you would consider a leader in athletics. Primarily because I worked hard and I was pretty athletic. And then you go to the military and there's just a culture of doing what you're told. So you can kind of develop this false sense of leadership skills because people are not allowed to tell you no.
Right.
And then you step out into the real world and people don't care, or they don't like you, or they don't want to do it. And that is when I found out I was severely lacking in my ability to get people to buy into the vision of what you're doing, because I was pretty terrible at communicating what it was. I was just in that mindset of like, you do what I tell you because that's how this works. Yeah. And that came back and hit me in the face pretty hard. And I had to do a lot of kind of self-reflection on I was not good at something I had thought for the most of my life that I was pretty strong at.
Yeah. Yeah. And in our business, people always say, oh, you have 90 employees in one location. They have to do what you tell them. I like to tell people we have 90 volunteers that I happen to pay, because once you work at Chick-fil-A, people come and they want to steal everybody. So they have zero problem getting another job. So you walk in and start yelling at people and treating them like crap, they're going to walk out. Whether it's during a shift, before a shift, after a shift, not show up before a shift. So yeah, you got to be able to communicate to people in a way to get what you need out of them, but more importantly, add value to them and their life. And I think for us, that's the key. I feel like at our location is trying to help them, not just inside of Chick-fil-A, because yes, we're a business and we need them to do something for us, but at our location, we want to make an added value for them and make sure that whatever they're doing with us is going to help them in the next stage. Now, some people choose to stay and work at our location or the new location. Some want to be a corporate employee. Some want to be an owner-operator. Then you have others that they're using this to build their resume, which is fine, and they're going to learn the skills just to be a stepping stone to the next stop.
That's something I kind of started to really wrap my brain around a couple years ago, was that we're all going to break up eventually.
That's what I say to my team.
We're all going to break up eventually.
Yeah.
And if you're smart, you'll play the long game and you'll do it on your terms. And you just set that person up for success. And a lot of people you don't want to leave, and then you kind of get into, okay, well, what can I do to keep the person? But at the end of the day, like, the right thing to do is set them up for success because they'll perform well. But a lot of people are scared of that. So as far as communication goes, like, because I know you read a lot, right? So you're always kind of educating yourself. What is one of the biggest communication tools that you've learned over the years? Like, I'm selfishly curious as somebody who needs to communicate to a really large population of people on a regular basis. Yeah.
So I took this. I'm taking this lesson from a lot of leaders. I would say the first one, starts with my dad, always being present. He never led quote unquote organization, but he definitely led our family, and dad was at everything. So unconsciously and subconsciously I learned, like, you literally have to be there. And then as
when you say be there, real quick, I do want to clarify, meaning like physically, are you talking about like I have to be around, or you're talking about like I'm present in this conversation?
Oh, no, he's present in the conversation.
Yeah.
He'd come to all your sporting events. He'd come to whatever I did, in high school, in middle school, even in elementary school, throwing football at the bus stop, coming to ball games, doing his best to encourage us without, putting all these crazy expectations on us. That's where I first learned that lesson. And then, like, the older I got, I had, some awesome coaches, some awesome pastors, some awesome professors. And then now that I'm in Chick-fil-A, one of the first things they do with you when you're selected is the first thing they do with you is they put you in what's called Fundamentals, a restaurant leadership course. It's 6 weeks long. And one of the first days, Dan Cathy, our CEO, rents a 55-passenger bus, and he spends the whole day with you, and he does a vision and values tour. So he takes you to the very first Chick-fil-A. He takes you to the Dwarf House, which is what Truett started. And then all along the way, he's sharing with you his vision for the brand and what you should do as a leader. So, that's something that made a huge impression on me. It's like, here's the CEO of a now $10 billion company, and yet he spends all of his time with people versus, trapped in an office. And then as I got into Chick-fil-A and started studying the best business owners in Chick-fil-A, all of them do that. They're in their restaurants every day, whether it's one or two. And the most important thing is they spend their time with people. So for me, that's what I try to do every day is be in there. And, you're serving the team so they can, in turn serve the guests. And some days it's great and everything works perfect. And then other days it's like, what's going on here? But because you're there, you're able to intercept so many different issues and usually provide a perspective that maybe somebody hasn't thought of. Because usually they're not mad at me. They're either mad with each other or mad with the guests or mad at a system. So you can provide perspective or help them solve it. So I think for me, the best communication is being present for whatever it is, whether you're leading a family, you're leading a business, you're leading a team at work, because you're building those relationships with people. And then they in turn trust you, which is at the heart of every single relationship we all have is, do we trust that other person? And if we don't, nothing else happens well. And I think that's what saves us a lot of time. We have a very difficult job. We're so busy, almost open to close now. The numbers we do is astounding. So how can we get people to want to work for us? And you start asking them, they're like, oh, because my boss cares. And that might not be me. It might be the leader that's over them. It could be me or it could be another leader in the organization. But it's just being present with them and working alongside of them. So nothing beats being present for sure.
Why? Because I think there's a lot of similarities in CrossFit and Chick-fil-A, but also if you were to back that out a little bit from a macro standpoint of within CrossFit and then within the restaurant industry. So I would liken Chick-fil-A to the premier CrossFit gyms who do the business aspect well, do the customer service well, and do the service well. And then there's everybody else, right? And why? Cassie and I were driving back from Raleigh last weekend, and we were just starving. So I forget where we were. I think we were right outside of 58. What's the city I'm thinking of?
Emporia.
Yeah. And we're like, all right, let's go to McDonald's. And every time I go there, I regret it.
Yep.
It's terrible.
Yep.
Not from a standpoint of the food's super terrible. It's not great, but that's not why. The service is horrendous.
Yeah.
Why is Chick-fil-A so good at that aspect and everybody else just falls woefully short of that benchmark?
And I definitely think CrossFit and Chick-fil-A agree in this science side of the training, right? So the way that
the reason I ask is I do think there is now a clear divide of CrossFit gyms who would fall in the Chick-fil-A bucket and then in the kind of McDonald's bucket.
Yeah.
And I don't know why.
So I think personally, CrossFit, Chick-fil-A have a philosophy of training well. And then I think most brands, I'll just say inside of our category, which is fast food, the CEO of McDonald's and Hardee's and Burger King and Wendy's and Taco Bell, they all actually have a vision for service. Now, how they cast that vision, how it's executed, I think is where it's different. So, it's up to each person who's a leader in those businesses how they decide to train people. So I think it goes down to selection. So for Chick-fil-A and us, it goes down to selection of who has a restaurant. And then for us, it's a selection of our people. Notice I didn't say hire. So many people hire people versus select them. And I think that's where you see the difference is people hire to fill a spot, we select to fill a position and a need for the business. So once we select someone, we then train them properly. And I've been to quite a few CrossFit gyms across the country, and I would say that's what y'all do well here is, I mean, there's so much time spent with the new coaches that have been here a while, as well as new members, as well as those people like me that have been here almost 6 years. So I think that's where the philosophy is similar, is the training. Once you have the selection right, then you can train that person. And if you're training, once the new training's over, then you're now developing that person, which helps, again, here make CrossFit better for the client as well as the coach. And then for us, it's going to make the team member better, or the leader better, which in turn makes experience better for the guests. And that's where everybody else, in my opinion, they have the problem with selecting the right people versus, it's the hiring. They're hiring versus selecting.
I think a lot of CrossFit gyms, I don't know if it's selecting the right people. I think, and I'm biased because it's based on my own experience, is lack of casting the appropriate vision to the team. So I don't think, most CrossFit gyms have just a slew of great people. They're just like awesome people to be around. It's, it's got that barrier in there that keeps the turds out. But I don't know when it was. I think it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago, maybe 5 at this point, where something happened where I just really started to take a look at the service side of CrossFit. So forget coaching, forget what your knowledge is about the air squat and the snatch and all that crap. What I started really to try to hone in on was what is that person's experience when they walk in the door? Are they greeted? Do people smile? How long does it take for somebody to get to them? How long does it take us to call them back? When they come in and they do their intro or their consult, what is that experience like? Because that's what keeps people. Not your knowledge of the air squat, not what programming you write. None of that stuff matters. What matters is when they come in here, do they smile? Do they have a good time? Are they laughing? Do they do something difficult? Do they learn something about themselves? And I think the reason that most people don't do that is because it's hard.
Yeah, it's very hard.
It's really hard.
Every day.
It takes a lot of emotional equity. It takes a lot of systems and processes to replicate a really, really good experience. Yeah. And that's why I always look at Chick-fil-A, because every time I go into one, it's very, they vary a little bit depending on where you're at, but for the most part, they're the same. Yeah. The people have the same attitude, the service is the same, and it's pretty impressive. Yeah.
And I think when you said casting the vision, and that's also what I'm speaking on the training side, is when you're training people, you're having to cast the vision that you have, for your business, but also that customer service side. So, and if you can't train them, that's where all these things, just the basic generic things of smiling, that stuff goes out the window. So, for what we do, and most companies have it, they just call it something different. We have the core 4, which is you're maintain eye contact, you share a smile, you speak enthusiastically, you stay connected. Everybody calls it something different. It's the same thing. But if we have someone come in an interview, whether they want to work the front or the back, they have to have those 4 things. If not, obviously we don't move forward with them. So you're right. It has to have a vision that's casted that can also cascade across your organization. The training aspect is huge because if you cannot train the people, then the service won't follow. And you're casting that vision of service, and also for us, we're casting the vision of excellence. And Chick-fil-A has been in the top of every category for a very long time. But that's one thing Chick-fil-A corporate does really well is, hey, we're really good, but how can we get better? How can we get better? How can we get better?
So I think that is probably one of the things that aligns the most from what I've seen from Chick-fil-A and CrossFit. And when I say CrossFit, I don't mean in the larger CrossFit community. I'm talking about specifically in CrossFit Inc. is feedback. So feedback is never ending. It is brutal. It is honest, and it is constant. And that's what I see a lot in your organization, and that's what I've seen a lot, and that's what I try to replicate here, because that's where you get the biggest bang for your buck, is training people to understand that, not even just your coaches, your members too, training them to understand that feedback is imperative and it's not personal. It's intended for growth. And if you take the feedback and you can implement it, you can press the fast forward button on a lot of things that would otherwise take you years.
But I think the thing that you hit on is something I said earlier, though. You said feedback's important and it helps people get better here. Being a client 6 years here, it goes back to trust. I trust y'all that you have my best interest at heart. And then now I'm now open, right? I'm now open to your feedback. Because yes, I want to get better, and y'all want to help us get better as clients. But the clients here trust you, and that's where I think a lot of people in the CrossFit community, that's what draws them. It's getting better.
Yeah.
They trust the community. They trust their coaches. They trust the other clients and members in the gym. And I think that's the same for us. Is our team trusts us, the guests trust us, and that's why they're able to come back and get all the awesome service and the great tasting food. But it still comes from us as the leaders, is our team's going to trust us and we give them the feedback. And for us, feedback, we just do it two ways. One, we do the coaching model, which y'all do here. What went well, would you do differently? And then we do a just immediate feedback model, like, hey, this is what I saw. And we use it for positive too. Hey, the other day it was pouring down rain. I noticed you grabbed an umbrella and helped the old lady to her car. Or the mom with 3 kids to her car. Great job. Or, hey, I saw you do this. Remember, we're not supposed to do that. And we just use those two models and just replicate it over and over and over. That's how we do our evaluations as well. Anytime somebody sits down with the leader brings 3 things they think the team member does well and 3 things they need to improve on. But the team member also brings those same 3 they do well and 3 they do differently. And when you give that feedback consistently within that model of trust, you're going to get better. But we also find people that don't like the feedback, so they're not fit for our culture.
And that's okay.
It's okay. They can be a customer again. We like customers.
We've had that too. We've had coaches, but also with members. Like, if people don't want to be part of the community or they don't want to take the coaching, I've asked members to leave.
Yeah.
Like, this is probably not the place for you, man. If you what you want is an open gym.
Yep.
So either go to a gym that has open gym or just go work on your garage, man. You don't need to pay me for that.
Yep.
Like, you're here giving me money for no particular reason.
Yeah.
And I don't really understand it.
Which I think is sad, because I think that's one of the best things. I love the community here. I think the community in CrossFit, of all the gyms I've been to, is great, but especially here. But the thing that draws me and has drawn me since day one is the getting better. So whether I can come in here and do an air squat, or I can, back squat 350 pounds, each of those people has a place where y'all can help them get better. And I think that's what brings people back over and over and over. It's like, hey, I can get better at this. And not only that, someone there is helping me get better. So I'm getting that evaluated experience.
Yeah, you're looking forward to getting better because it's just incremental improvement. Yes. Okay, so on this topic, and then we'll switch gears. Because you've been into quite a few CrossFit gyms, because you travel a decent amount, and I would say you've probably pushing north of 50 CrossFit gyms, probably.
Yeah, give or take. It depends. Yeah,
close enough.
Close enough.
What for you would be the ideal introduction into a CrossFit gym? Like, I stole that idea. It's not mine. I don't remember where I got it from, but we basically take the new folks and we just pair them up with somebody. So we don't have to do the helicopter coach thing.
Right.
And it's almost a forced interaction, which always turns out well anyway. Yeah. But we found that to be super beneficial for people to do that, which I think has been really cool.
Yeah, and I just remember coming in. I came in on a Saturday. There was 3 of us doing the intro class. I felt like I was going to die. I think, as we all do in those first classes. And it was a good die, because somebody was there right with you, and they were, helping you, as you say, save yourself from yourself and not getting too much weight or whatever. And then when I came to the next class, I was able, Jason Chebitar was one of the first guys I met. So somebody like him. Good intro. Yeah, somebody like him. We had a background in soccer, so we had that in common. We both loved college football, even though he likes a really bad team. +1.
Sorry, Pitt.
Sorry, Pitt. But no, he, and every time I come in, like, he's just able to show me, and the coach was also there showing me as well, but you have somebody of that caliber helping you go through the learning curve, which helps shrink. So for me, that's what I like the best. I definitely think you need the intro class, because I didn't know anything about CrossFit at all. I knew nothing about it. So having that intro class is great, but then being able to be paired with someone that's experienced and can help me learn and go through the growth curve a lot quicker than if I was just coming in here by myself.
It's just one of the most effective ways that we found to break down that barrier of anxiety and being overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Just to pair them up with somebody who's And we're pretty good at it, I think. I'm usually try to pair them up with somebody who matches that person, who in the class is similar to this person, who has like a similar background based on what I know about them right now. And that usually turns out pretty well. Yeah.
And it's overwhelming when somebody comes in or at least when I came in and they're saying like, oh, do this and do that and go grab this. I don't know what anybody was talking. I honestly did not know what a kettlebell was. And I didn't know where things were stored. I didn't know where the ab mat was. I didn't know if it was supposed to be forwards or backwards. Were I supposed to be against the wall? Do I have dumbbells under my feet? Does somebody hold my feet like PE class?
Yeah.
I was so lost. But when you have someone there with you, again, it really helps you.
Yeah, just say, hey,
not
just
feel so
me.
stupid. Yeah.
Follow me.
And then you can ask them questions without asking in a whole group like, oh, what are you supposed to do
I think there was a point when we just realized that those moments that you're talking about were like, I don't know where the wall balls are. What's an ab mat or all those things? Those are these little micro pain points that make a bad experience, which would be the same in the restaurant industry. So we don't do it perfectly and it's really hard to do it perfectly, but we really try to go out of our way to create an environment and structure things in a manner that would eliminate all of those pain points. And not even just for the new members. Right. For the current members, like I'm always trying to look at the space. Hey, is that a pain to get because of where it's located? Or did we create some weird cross traffic pattern that now that loses time and stuff like that? Because if I can make it convenient for the members, then it's really convenient for the new people because now it's just this seamless flow of, okay, well, I go over there and then the wall balls. And because that's one of the things we're working on now is I'm going to get another wall ball rack, but they're all going to be labeled and it's going to be really clean. So, so the new person that walks up there is like, oh, a 10-pound goes right here. And it looks like it goes right back here when I'm done. So just
you want to reduce anxiety and increase skill. And the quicker you can do those, then people can be on their own, a little more self-sufficient, which 100%. Means they're going to return because they've had a positive experience.
Okay, cool. Let's talk a little bit about your intro to CrossFit. So in my opinion, have like a kind of a standard transition from endurance sports into CrossFit. So talk a little bit about your athletic background. So you played soccer, but you got into some triathlon stuff for a little bit.
I did a little bit of triathlons. My wife is working for Triangle Orthopedic Clinic out of Raleigh, and we went to one. And I thought, hey, this is really cool. So I started training to do one, but I didn't have a coach, unfortunately. So I had to teach myself to do all this stuff, and that didn't really go so hot. But that's okay. I had fun. And then when we moved here, I was super busy at the restaurant, working about 100-hour weeks for a while. And I didn't have a lot of time. So I had the P90X stuff, and I think it was great at the time. It's just only so long you can do P90. Like I can't do P90X every 90 days. It just comes a point you're like, I need something else to do.
That's always been my question about that program.
What do you do after 90 days?
What do you do after 90 days?
So one of the members that I think he's moved here from now, but MJ, I was out at the beach with one of his friends who used to work for us, and he's like, hey, you're doing P90X. Why don't you try CrossFit? And I was like, okay. Then I go back in the neighborhood, I'm working out, and one of our neighbors was like, hey, why don't you try CrossFit? And then about 2 weeks later, we were at a party. Another guy I was talking to, he's like, oh, what workout program you doing? And his guy's big old jacked dude. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm doing P90X. He goes, you should try CrossFit. So after 3 times, I end up giving you a call, and I told you that story. Like 3 different people told me to try CrossFit. I probably should start listening.
First rule of CrossFit, always talk about
CrossFit. So that's how I got here. That was in December 8th of 2012, to be exact.
And then talk a little bit about your progression through that time. So when you came in, you were an athlete before, so it's not like you were coming in like knowing zero about working out. But even so, it can be a pretty steep learning curve. Yeah,
it was a huge learning curve. Obviously, the things I was really good at, running, jump roping, pull-ups, I was good at here. But then the things that I've never done before were glaringly obvious. So the air squat, I remember the first time, I was in your class and you're like, all right, we're doing an air squat. And you're like looking at me, like, can you go any lower? And I don't even think I was within 3 feet of being 90 degrees. Anyway, whatever. It was bad. So, I think it really highlights your weaknesses or areas of improvement, areas to work on, areas of opportunity, whatever fancy word we put around it. So that was an interesting journey from that standpoint of, the air squats. Growing up, obviously went back squat and bench press. That was fine. But, power cleans and deadlifts and all those things I had never. So there was a steep learning curve for me there. Thrusters, I don't think anybody likes those still, but that was an interesting introduction to that. And then just a lot of the gymnastics movement from, ring muscle ups, bar muscle ups, pistols, things that, number one, I didn't even know existed.
Yeah.
And after you do them the next day, or really more importantly, 2 days after, you're like, oh my gosh, that makes my body sore. And, areas I didn't know you could be sore, So yeah, it was a fun journey, but it also gave me the ability to have something to work on and improve on, which has been a lot of fun.
Which for some people I think can be intimidating, that there's so many things that here's this list of things that you can't do, basically, is how that can feel. Then there's another group of people that I would describe that would fall in your category, which are a little bit more A-type, a little bit more binary about, okay, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this, and then this. This is a very clear roadmap to how I get to that. And for people who fall in your camp, I think CrossFit is like the best fit ever, because there's always another level or another modification to scale it up. I can always load the bar heavier. I can always make the gymnastics movement more advanced. I can always pick up the pace on the running or the rowing. And a lot of people that are hyper competitive do very well there to an extent, because then it can be bad as well. Agreed.
So for me, I think kind of the greatest strengths, greatest weakness. I think the greatest strength of a type A person is always improve, but a lot of us type A people, like, we plan things. Like we plan, and we have a great plan, and you think the plan is going to get you through, and you do a little bit of tweaks. But in CrossFit, I don't think there's a prescribed plan, because for one person, they could do this certain diet or this certain workout plan, and it works great. And then another person does the exact same thing and is a train wreck. Like maybe
doesn't get the same result.
Yeah, they don't get the same result. So I think sometimes for type A people, if you're not careful, all you're going to do is find a person, and there's nothing wrong with finding someone and asking them advice to get better at that skill, but you can't take every single person who's good and try to do the exact same thing they're doing, because it might not work. I think you need to take the little things from each person. And for a lot of type A people, it's time off. It's not doing 3 on, 1 off, 3 on, 1 off. It might be 2 days you work out and 1 day you rest, or the typical 3 on, 1 off, 2 on, 1 off. And for me, I enjoy doing other sports, so I'm still playing hockey and soccer. So I'm not going to come here 6 days a week if I'm doing those other sports a couple days a week. So yeah, it can be a very challenging sport, in my opinion, for people who are type A, especially if they don't get the results they want to see, because they're just going to keep trying harder.
Yeah. And I'm thinking back about the majority of our conversations with regard to training, and I don't think it would be a stretch to say that you and I have spoken about rest more than we've spoken about training over 6 years.
That's a hands down accurate statement. Yep.
That's not the norm, though.
No, it's not. No, but yeah, I remember I had to send you pictures of my cheat meal. I would have to text you the days I took off. You said, dude, you need to get some type of sports deep tissue massage. So those were the 3 things that you and Jess told me a lot. There's multiple days I had to text you cheat meals, because I could go a whole month without eating a cheat meal. And you're like, dude, you got to do something else, because this is becoming.
Yeah. And it was when we're not advocating that people do like a ton of breaking the nutrition guidance, but there is you can do anything too much.
Yep.
And for some people, that's our job, is to keep them from just walking off the ledge blindly, because they're like, this is how it goes, and I'm going to do it until it kills me. And so, yeah, for you, it's been a different journey as far as coaching than it has for most people. But it's not uncommon where I will have to tell somebody, you need to take a day off.
Yep.
You need to take 2 days off. You need to take a month off.
Yeah.
You need to not come in here, because what I'm starting to see is this is no longer fun for you anymore.
Yeah.
This is a labor that you have somehow burdened yourself with.
Yeah.
And that's not what it should be. It should be, I've recently gotten to this place where I am really conscious of whether CrossFit is adding value to someone's life or it's taking away value. And I think there's a lot of people who fall in the latter camp but don't know it, where CrossFit is taking away from their life and they're just are not aware of it.
Yeah.
CrossFit's great, but again, you can do anything too much.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I've learned in my life, but also even learned here from y'all, is if it's causing pain, you need to stop. Now, whether it's stop working out for a little bit or stop trying to do a heavier weight, or you look at the bar next to you and that person has 50 more pounds than you and you're going to do 50 more, it's stop doing that, because it should not cause you pain. It's supposed to here to make you healthy, not keep you from being healthy.
Yeah.
So that, that's something. And for me, it was a very easy and quick, self-correcting problem there. It's like, hey, I can't do what this person's doing because it's making me hurt, or physically I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So for me, that was the easy part. The other part was, hey, you don't have to come in so much, and it didn't hurt or didn't help. Maybe I was just right down the street. Now that we've moved, it takes a little bit longer to get here, and I have to plan my day around it. So yeah, I think that's been a big learning for me, is making sure that it remains fun, but that also too, you're not doing it too much.
On that note, because you referenced playing soccer and hockey and doing CrossFit and about to have 2 restaurants to operate, I find your time management skills to be borderline annoying.
My wife would say the same thing.
Yeah. And I bring this up, A, because I do admire that about you, but B, I have very frequent conversations about people that don't have time.
Right.
In air quotes. They don't have time. They can't fit it in. And for somebody like you, I think I don't know if you always knew it, but I know you fully grasp it now, that if you are in fact that busy, that this or some other similar outlet has to be mandatory.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you're right in the sense of how I schedule my time. When I was in high school, before all the electronic stuff, I just carried an index card around and I planned out every 30 minutes of my day. I just always have. Yeah, no one taught me. I've always done. I don't know why, or didn't know why then. Now that I'm older and I've taken so many different personality tests in StrengthsFinder, but one of the characteristics of in StrengthsFinder is I'm a maximizer. So now it makes complete sense. So, and even in college, during the week, I'm playing sports, and I would go to bed between 8 and 9 p.m. and I'd wake up at 4 or 5 a.m. and study. That's just the way my body's wired. I still do that to this day. My body wakes up between 4 and 5, and if you're not careful, you can waste the first 2 or 3 hours of the day, watching the news, watching SportsCenter, doing nothing, scrolling, aimlessly through Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. So, like I said, I plan every 30 minutes of my days. When I wake up, I schedule all these things.
Do you still do that?
I still do that.
30-minute blocks?
30-minute blocks. Now that I have a business, I'll do time chunks. So I think a lot of people who are listening will probably be familiar with, time blocking or time chunking.
Time blocking's it's come up a lot lately, like in a lot of the coaching world and stuff like that. I've seen it a lot.
So it just depends. Now, another thing is
what does time blocking look like for you?
Yeah, so for me, I've always wanted to be a husband and a dad. So those are the 2 things I make sure that I am first. And then third is a business owner. And then fourth, is the fun stuff, whether it's CrossFit or soccer or hockey. So the time block.
Wait, what was second?
Husband, dad.
What was first?
Husband being first.
Oh,
second,
got it. Okay, got it. Sorry.
Business owner third, and then the fun stuff fourth.
Yeah.
So I have that priority list first, and then my calendar follows that. So in the morning, get up, I do my morning routine, and then Monday and Friday mornings at 6:30 is when I play hockey for an hour, and then then after that, I go into the office, work for the day, and then do whatever it is. And then during the day, I plan every 30 to 60 minutes, whether it's one-to-ones with my leaders, being in certain parts of the restaurant. Some days there's meetings, but still planning that out. And then the time blocking comes when, like Tuesday afternoon, it's always reserved for my leadership meetings. And then on Monday afternoon, I meet with my top people. Wednesday and Thursday afternoons they're always open for either interviews or some type of development for my leaders as well. So those are, now every week, there might not be something on Wednesday and Thursday, but the time is still there. So that way I can have it.
Have you found an effective way to teach that? So I'm constantly trying to teach it either to the staff, but in a lot of cases to the members, right? So we're always dealing with some sort of, not negation is the word, but from people who are like, I don't have time, which is almost never the case. No. Almost never the case that they don't have time. If you're giving somebody advice to how to start that, because a lot of people are resistant to time blocking, to scheduling, because I don't know if it's because they have to face the fact that they are negligent with their time, or it's just we have to combat a ton of habits that we don't want to change. Right.
So a couple things that I do, there's 2 books. One is called Living Forward. a guy named Michael, what's his name? Michael Hyatt, and the guy who owns a company called Building Champions. I forgot his name, but anyway, the book's called Living Forward. So it helps you develop a life plan. So that way it helps you get the behaviors you would need over time. And then the book I love is called Essentialism. There's another one like The One Thing, Simplify. They all are say the same thing. So I think Essentialism is the best book. And it takes what you do in all these areas of your life and helps you pare it down to the one or two things that help you be successful in that area. So what's the thing that makes me be successful as a husband? What's the thing, one or two things that helps me be successful as a dad? And then there's a tool called My Ideal Week, and I actually have all my leaders fill it out and send it to me on Sunday night. And they plan every hour,
week,
every Sunday night. All my leaders have to send it to me, and it's every hour of their day planned out. Now, what they do outside of work, they don't have to put on there. It's none of my business, but a lot of them choose to put it there. And then I'm able to coach them and say, all right, if your goal is to lose weight, but I only see you have one 30-minute block of exercise, then we probably need to either up
You're exposing actual priorities.
We're now exposing the priorities, but more importantly, we're exposing the action. As I think their priorities to work out. Everybody has their mistaken intention and priority. Their intention is to work out, so therefore they think
but it's not a priority.
It's not. The actions are what is showing your priority. So if you look at like my calendar, you'll see each day of where I have my exercise, whether it's CrossFit or hockey or soccer.
I don't know where. I think I heard that from somebody where they said, show me your calendar, and I'll tell you what your priorities are.
Yeah,
and
maybe you heard it from me. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe, but it's not the first time I've heard it, and it's very true. And because it's easy for you to say something is your priority, but then in many scenarios that does not at all match my actions.
No,
where,
absolutely not.
Hey, I want to do this. Well, you spend zero time doing all that. You like to talk about it a lot, but you don't do any of it. And sometimes that can be difficult for me to kind of coach athletes through or staff.
When it goes back to what gets scheduled gets done and what gets rewarded gets repeated. So people say, well, what's your reward for going to CrossFit? I feel better. I don't get sick. I've learned to eat better. Beyond my wildest comprehension, I'm actually have some good mobility compared to 6 years ago.
Significantly.
So, I mean, those are the things that help me reward it because now I don't hurt. You know, I'm getting ready to turn 39 next week. I don't hurt like people
that's right,
around
bro.
me.
14th, right?
No, 9th.
9th. Oh, that's right. You're right. You're right before mine.
As you, Chep, and I are like 9th, 10th, 11th in November. So those are the things that help me get rewarded. And then there's some days I come in here and a WOD, it's not easy. I just can complete it versus, other days, it's not your best day, but there's some days you come in and you're like, hey, this is good. So that's my reward. And then also, my son's 8, my daughter's 6. So, I can run around with them without getting tired. I can bend over. I can go out and wrestle or whatever, and I don't get hurt. I just met somebody the other day who threw their back out wrestling with their kid. And he's like, I just stopped working out. And I went, okay. You know it. So, go do something, So, again, I go back to, your priority can be there, but you have to have the discipline I only like to use the word discipline. You have to have the action to get you there. I definitely, every day, every week, I have to do 3, that's just my thing. I do 3 CrossFit workouts. Now, sometimes they're in my garage at home, which I would prefer not to do because I enjoy being here. The reason why, number one, y'all have already thought of the warm-up. You've already thought of the workout and my cool-down, so I don't have to think about it. But 2, I'm always going to work harder when I'm around people, with like minds. So
100%.
that's how I do it. Before, with the restaurant schedule, I would come every day, not every day, but 3 days a week at 3, and then 1 day a week at 3. I would do 3 on, 1 off, and then 1 on. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday is the schedule I used to have. So that's for me. It's the prioritization, but most importantly, the action steps that help get you there.
Do you are you accountable to anybody for that calendar? Or are you just pretty good at holding yourself accountable?
Yeah, I've never. In fact, I've had life coaches that I'm accountable to take things off the calendar has been my kind of like you. You're my.
They're like reduce.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of times it's not
simplify.
Even reduce. They're just like you can simplify it. And then I had one life coach that was like, your things are pretty much in order. And again, my wife is really good about making sure I'm not too busy. But like she really trusts me with that, though. Like she doesn't say, "Oh, because I'm at home." Like we do dinner with the kids every night. We take them to school. We pick them up from school and take them to practices. So I don't have that problem where like I work too much and I'm never home. Like she would say, I don't know how much it's balanced because I don't ever think people say it's a work-life balance. I completely
I've written
disagree.
about this before.
Yeah, I completely disagree with a balance. what you're supposed to be is 100% present. So if I'm at work, I'm 100% present. If I'm at home, I'm 100% present. If I'm here, I'm going to be 100% present. I'm not going to go check my phone during a workout. Now, some people have to because of their job. I get it. Like some people are on call.
Yeah.
I'm not talking though. I'm talking the average person that's not expecting the call, right? I leave my phone. That's one thing I love. I leave my phone in the locker room. I come in here and for an hour, it's uninterrupted.
Good hour to detach.
It's an awesome hour. So yeah, I've never, for right or wrong, never had a person I've had to be accountable to complete those things.
Some people need it.
Yep.
Somebody say, hey, where you at? Like, you're supposed to be there. Why were you not there?
Yeah.
And then you have to kind of face yourself and tell yourself you're just making excuses for stuff.
And with my leaders or some of them, I do a coaching session with them every month for 30 minutes. So I'm able to take their ideal weeks and say, all right, if your goal is this and we're trying to, maybe they're losing 30 pounds or maybe they're trying to start a business, I need to see the action steps in those plans.
Yeah.
And if not, in those ideal weeks, and if they're not, that's what we chat about. Like, all right, where can we fit that hour? And they'll say, I don't have time. I'm like, all right, let's write everything out. And when I hear people tell me they don't have time, I just say, all right, just trust me on this. Take the ideal week and fill it out for what you did this week, the best of your knowledge. And what they do is they look at the 24 hours that's there, and I have them list every hour, sleep, work, drive, and they go, that's a lot of hours I didn't realize I was doing.
Oh,
Whether
yeah.
it's watching TV, going out to eat, which is nothing wrong with going out to eat. You can go out to eat, especially Chick-fil-A.
Scrolling through your phone.
Scrolling through phone, doing mindless activities where...
I took the Facebook app off of my phone, and I spend significantly less time on my phone. I have the Pages app on my phone because that's for business, right? So I'm constantly in there either replying to comments or just making sure that we're putting out content. But the personal Facebook app I do not have on my phone because that would just be, for me, I think one day I was just sitting there and realized I am 10 levels deep on this absolutely worthless conversation. I have better things to do. I have people that are relying on me to be way more productive than I'm being right now. So I literally deleted it right there. Yep. And I have been super happy about it ever since.
I read something this week. Somebody, I think it might have been the CEO of Evernote, wrote, hey, people aren't addicted to technology. We're addicted to information. So yes, there's an endorphin release when you check Facebook, but the endorphin release is because of the information that we're getting. It's not, the red dot does not give us the endorphin release. It's the information that we're reading about people. And a lot of people, they're going on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and they're usually reading articles, but they're not doing anything with it. And we're addicted to information.
Brings no value.
No value. And again, we're not doing anything with it. It's information, but there's no action.
And that's what I realized is that I could be rather than getting no value for my time, I could be providing value with my time. Yeah. So what am I doing to provide value? Yeah. Anyway, okay. So I think this is important. So I think in most scenarios, a lot of people would look at you, Jason Barnes, be like, hey, this guy's successful, loves working out. So of course this is easy for him. And he's not me. We have nothing in common, but I don't necessarily think that's true. Is there something that you've had to deal with within CrossFit that was like a real big hurdle for you? Because I think a lot of people look at that and they say, yeah, it just comes easy to him. He's like played college soccer, like he likes to work hard, he time blocks his time, all this stuff. Yeah, and I don't know, maybe this resonates with probably 90% of people in CrossFit. It was the food aspect. So the food stuff had not come easy. I mean, I was almost, by my estimation, around 30% body fat when I started. Around 200. Really? Mm-hmm. About 30%. I guess I've known you so long, I kind of forgot.
So, and I've gotten as low as like 11%, but like right now I'm 14 to 15%, which for me, I feel good. Most days I feel good. And I think the food aspect to CrossFit was a real big struggle because, again, I go back to what I said earlier about the prescription. So I followed the zone diet, and I was like, man, I feel like crap. I had like everybody, we had the first week, 2 or 3 weeks of that new way to eat, and you feel amazing. And then like the 4th, 5th, and 6th week, I was like, this sucks. So then it's like, oh. And what happened is Brent and I, my wife and I were out with Fern and his wife, Jess. And we were out.
Fern is me, for those of you who may not know.
I'm sorry. We were out with Jason Fernandez right here and his wife, Jess Fernandez. And she ordered a gluten-free pizza. I looked at my wife and she looked at me and we're like, we literally had our menus up and I was like, what was that? And she goes, what is she doing? How did she not eat it?
We can't be friends with these people anymore.
It was so weird. And then we got in the car and I was like, is it really weird? I was like, should we be eating like this? I just know the way I feel. And we'd only been members here like a month. Or Bryn wasn't even a member
she wasn't
yet.
even, she joined
she was pregnant
a year
at
and a
that
half
time.
later.
And she was like, no, I'm not joining pregnant. Which, that's a whole other conversation another day. We're not getting into that here. Another podcast. And I was like, man. And so then I came to a couple of the nutrition things you did, and I started reading. And over time, I mean, we've tried everything from Weight Watchers to Zone to keto, intermittent fasting. We've tried a lot, and some things have worked for us. But at the end of the day, the thing I found that worked the most, everyone agreed on, was usually if you're working out, 1 gram of protein per body weight.
For body weight or lean body weight?
Lean body weight, excuse me. Thank you. Sorry. Lean body weight.
No, I just wanted to make sure, because some people do it the other way. No, it works differently for different people.
And then for us, at least for me personally, I do the healthy carbs. I don't eat a lot of crap, but it was the healthy carbs.
Which is interesting considering you work in a fast food restaurant.
It's kind of hard. We do have a lot of healthy stuff, but there's still some items that I would like to eat every day that I can't. And then the fat. So everyone agreed on protein and the fat intake for the most part. The carbs is where everybody disagreed, and that's really. I mean, I know people would laugh and be like, "Well, that's silly." But it really, you and I had so many conversations about it, and you're like, hey, you got to figure out what works for yourself. So that's something that, and I forgot, I did the RP, RP as well, which was really good. So for me, that was a big struggle. Now, I didn't struggle with any like eating disorders or anything like that, so I'm definitely not saying I had to that level, but it was the confusing side of like, my goodness, what am I supposed to eat? What am I not supposed to eat?
And I think what you did well for most of those is you were patient when you tried each of them. So you did each of them for a pretty significant chunk of time.
About 3 months.
Yeah, about 3 months apiece for most of those, and then made changes based on that versus I did it for a month, I don't like it, I'm going to go to the next thing. And then I'm doing this yo-yo dieting, and instead of sticking to something, learning something in the process, using that data point so that when I go to the next thing to try it out to learn more information, I can apply that previous knowledge to this and tweak it and modify it for me. And I think it's important for people to know that like everybody struggles, like regardless of where you come in. I mean, I struggle. My struggle now is like actually training, like trying to train 3-4 days a week for me is a struggle because I just.
Yet you work and own a gym.
People think that's funny. They're just like, how do you don't work out? And and sometimes I can't explain it. I'm like, there's a lot of things. There's a lot of moving parts. Now we have 2 locations. There's a lot of moving parts, trying to do coach development, trying to work on sales. And that can be a real struggle. And my big focus now is trying to get out of the seasoned OG salty coach mode of like walking in 2 minutes before they say 3, 2, 1, go, touching my toes twice, loading up the barbell and hoping I don't injure myself, and trying to get into the class and participating in a full warm up, being present for that hour so that I can remove myself from all the other stuff that's going on. So I struggle with that too. There's always a struggle no matter where you're at. So
and I think what I've landed on is what I've heard a lot of people say, what works for you is not going to work for another person. But Abel James has a podcast I listen to it comes out every Monday. And he says, the easiest thing I can tell you is wherever you are, eat the healthiest option that's available.
What's his, it's called the
the Fat Burning Man.
The Fat Burning Man,
podcast. And he has everybody on there. So he'll have people on there who don't believe in paleo and hate CrossFitters, and then next week he'll have on Rob Wolf, then the following week he'll have on some guy who's like a chemist at Princeton or wherever, and then the next week they have on Sean T. That was who does the Insanity, and that's why it's really neat because he'll have somebody bring in a different perspective, but all of them have said the same thing: you've got to eat the healthiest option that's around you, and that's something that has really helped me. Because like I said, I've done these diets. I've gotten as high, healthy as about 196, and I've gotten as low as 172. That's a pretty big.
Yeah. What was your heaviest?
My heaviest was right before I joined here, right around 205, which for me,
that's heavy because you're 5'11".
Well,
6 foot?
Right at 6 foot. Yeah. So it was for me. It's super heavy.
Yeah.
And I generally do. I know this sounds weird to people, but around 183 is where kind of I always said find your sweet spot.
17-pound swing.
Yeah, it's huge. From 205 you're at 22 pounds, and then at the 172, when I was super light, I was 11 pounds. It just makes a world of difference. And then like I've heard you say on a lot of these podcasts, most people aren't eating enough, and that's one thing I found for me. Is the protein I was fine. It was trying to figure out like, hey, how many healthy? Again, I got to go healthy carbs. carbs. It's not Snicker bars.
Yeah.
But how many healthy carbs and healthy fats do I need, and how does that help me? So that, again, it was a huge struggle. Over the past couple of years, it has not been. And I think I've worked
you
with
learned
you
a lot.
and Jess some, and
Yeah.
we've
You
had some
learned a
fun
lot.
testing things out. But the cool part about CrossFit was able to help me get better and learn, which obviously I love to do. So yeah, the food was definitely a struggle the first couple of years.
I think that might be one of the more common theme for most people is just the food. And just the struggle to be patient with the process of learning and then learning some things, because it takes time. It's like being strong. Strength takes a lifetime, and I think learning nutrition in a lot of instances and really can take a lifetime. Now that sounds like forever, and you're like, why would you do that? But I don't mean it's going to take you a lifetime to figure out like what is better. Like you're going to figure that out pretty quickly, but figuring out what is ideal shifts over time based on what you're doing, what's going on, stress levels, and all that stuff.
And I think you even said it before. So many people go 6 or 10 years and don't do anything and gain all this weight, and they want to be off in 6 to 10 days. But yet they've spent the last 6. Yeah, it's like you got to be patient. Now, I think you set a goal and say, hey, I want to lose this weight in a year, and it usually happens a lot quicker because most people who set out on that goal are usually pretty disciplined. But if you're like, hey, I'm going to lose 20 pounds in 30 days, it's just not going to happen.
You could do it, but you're not going to keep it off. Like there's
No.
ways to do it. It's not healthy and it's not sustainable. So it usually results in long-term failure, which I think is the, I heard that I was reading something on The Biggest Loser the other day about 80 to 90% of those people put all of the weight back on.
All of it.
All of it. And sometimes even more. Cool. I know you're an avid reader and podcast. Any other books you're reading or podcasts you're listening to now that are?
So I'm actually reading a book about raising daughters right now called, I think, I always forget the name of books, so I have to always go back and look. I think it's called Holy Yours. So that's been really cool. I'm getting ready to read the Brene Brown book, Daring Greatly. I've had a lot of people recommend that.
Yeah, I've had a lot of people recommend that to me too.
Yeah,
Okay.
and again, it's the vulnerability side of life.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty cool. I talked earlier about essentialism. I talked about Living Forward. I think those are really good books. And then, our COO, Tim Desopoulos at Chick-fil-A, reads 100 books a year, so we're able to get his book list. And so he'll have a couple in the ones I've shared. I usually get those from him or someone else. Yeah. You had us read a book. It's called Extreme Ownership, I believe. That's been mentioned on this podcast numerous times.
They just came up with their I don't know, it's not the sequel, it's different, but it's called The Dichotomy of Leadership. I think you'd enjoy it.
Yeah. So
it's about the push-pull of leadership, and you can take extreme ownership too far.
Yeah.
And there's this dichotomy that exists within most of your decision making about just trying to stay middle so that you're not doing too much, but you're not doing enough. So
I'm gonna have to check that one out.
It's pretty good. Very similar layout, very similar template as far as battlefield scenario, principle, application to a corporate world. I like the flow of the books. They do a good job with it, and Jocko's pretty cool dude. So
the podcast for me, Abel James, as I said, the Fat Burning Man. Andy Stanley, I listened to his. He has North Point Community Church sermons,
I haven't listened to his
but
stuff
also
in a while.
His leadership podcast is super good. I dabbled a little bit in Dave Ramsey's. I think he has a podcast. It's called Entrepreneurship or
Entree Leadership.
Entree Leadership.
Yep.
I thought that was really good. There's a podcast called Simplify. It's okay. I think it's good. It's just some of them are really long for me. One thing about my Maximize Yourself, I listen to these podcasts at double time. So
that's super fast.
Yeah, it's super fast, but I enjoy it.
I can do 1.5, maybe 1.25. I can't do double though.
Yeah, that's been fun.
I think about the Micro Machine guy.
Yeah, those are the ones I hit at least every week.
Okay.
Usually in the truck, going to and from work. I don't. Some of the others, like people like at the gym or you refer stuff, and I'll go listen to certain things.
Okay. Cool. I want to be respectful of your time. So last thing I do, and not everybody knows this, I do this yet, but they will once we release all the audio versions. You get to ask me any question you want. Doesn't have to be about the gym. Can literally be about anything.
Any question that I want. So I'm probably going to put 2 in one question.
That's fine. I think Adrian asked 6. So,
6?
Yeah.
That's because Adrian doesn't follow directions well.
Fair.
Love you, Adrian.
Yep.
All right. What has been your greatest success and greatest failure in life? I love asking this question to people.
I think I'm going to have to chew on that for a second. My greatest failure.
And hopefully it's something we learn something from.
Yeah, no. I would largely describe my career in the Navy as a failure. And a lot of people would be like, they would raise an eyebrow. I think I was a good officer. Like, I was always very much about taking care of my people. But what thing I did not learn or to do in the Navy was, and this is probably something you learn as you get older. The game of life is a game. That's exactly what it is. And what I refused to do was acknowledge that there was a game being played.
Interesting.
And to my own detriment. So my thought process was, hey, I'm not going to play your stupid game. I'm going to play my own game. And I can think of dozens of scenarios in which that cost me a lot of heartache and suffering. And so I probably didn't learn or realize or acknowledge that was going on until after I left the Navy. And then I got into the real world and I'm like, oh, this is just a game. Like, this is all a game. It's the game of life. And there's a lot of repercussions for both, for all of that. But I would largely consider that to be a personal failure for me, that I just was so stubborn and so resistant to acknowledging that there was a game. And by that, I don't mean that you should just buy in and be a blind participant in the game. But I do think you have to acknowledge that there is a game being played and choose your battles about what you're going to fight and what you're going to resist and what you're not going to fight and what you're not going to resist. And I was just all on the other side. I was just not going to play. And it hurt me. It hurt my career. It hurt a lot of my relationship with some senior leaders. And it probably ended up in some scenarios hurting the guys that worked for me to some extent. I tried to do a pretty good job of screening them from things from making its way down there. But I would, I'd be ignorant to think that like none of it made it below me. That would be super arrogant. So that was probably my greatest failure is not learning and realizing and acknowledging that there was a game being played there. And I stood to gain some things by simply acknowledging that it was going on. I think my greatest success in life is probably ongoing. I would consider it, it's a combination of, my family. So Jess and Logan and the new one on the way.
Congratulations, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. And, but this, I think, this whole thing, I think it's not done. So it's tough for me to call it a success in that sense, but I'm pretty proud of it.
Yeah.
I'm not satisfied with it, but I'm pretty proud of it. Yeah. And I tell people all the time, I've not been as obsessed with anything since I decided I want to play college basketball. So I've not been as obsessed with anything until I decided that this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to build an amazing community and have, world-class coaches and own multiple facilities and really bring health and happiness and fitness to the masses, not just people in brick and mortar. So I'm still stretching there. I don't know if that'll ever be a done deal, but that's probably where I would go. And, right before that is probably marrying my wife because she's my better half. So, yeah, I think that's it.
It's awesome.
Cool. That's a good question.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I sat in all the interviews, in one way or the other. And and everybody in interview. And also another one I always ask, and you already answered, is if you had your life to do over again, what's one thing you would change? And you already talked about.
Mine are very specific. Mine would be with regard to like certain times in my life where I had a certain amount of money. I would manage my money very differently. I don't know if I would do much else different because I've learned so much from those. But there's certain times where I had like surplus of money and I basically just like threw it up in the air and burned it. Yeah. But that would be it. I think everything else has kind of led me here today. So. Cool. Thanks for your time. Guys, if you have questions for Jason, if you have questions for us, you can find us on all the social media handles, CrossFitRife.com. Go through the website, you can get in contact with us with CrossFit Rife on Instagram, CrossFit Rife on Facebook. Reach out to us, and then CrossFit Rife on YouTube as well. So if you have questions for me or Jason about his experience for CrossFit, hit us up, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.
And before we go, if you don't mind, and I haven't seen you do any of these, so just say, you have a great gym. I would be completely remiss if I didn't say thanks for everything you've done to change our lives.
Yeah. Thank you, man. Yep. Appreciate it, brother. All right, guys. See you guys next time.